Hello and welcome back to Mansell Raceway. It's still the 27th of March 2022. Round 1 of the Blue Challenge is still in progress, and now it is time for the Senior Blues to take to the circuit for their final. 13 minutes plus a lap of racing in store for the drivers this afternoon, and it already looks like number 24 Rich Puddle might be having some problems. In the 3 heats previously today, Heat 1 was won by Anthony Cleal ahead of Stuart Gray and Dave Watts, with Joey Foster in 4th ahead of Paul Alexander, Ben Joseph, Mike Bell, Rich Puddle, Chris Lord and Nigel Vickery making up the top 10. Tom Parker in 11th ahead of Kevin O'Neill and Rob Mortimer, with Alex Fortune and Ron Schoen completing the top 15 ahead of Chris Underhill, David Good, Phil Shears, Alex Kemp the novice and Kieran Quirk. In Heat 2, Stuart Gray would just edge out Rich Puddle by 700ths of a second, and behind will be Joey Foster in the number 66 ahead of Anthony Cleal and Mike Bell. Dave Watts, the O-plate, would be 6th ahead of David Good, Sylvain Vessier, Tom Parker and Chris Lord recording another top 10. Phil Shears 11th ahead of Ben Joseph and Nigel Vickery, with Paul Alexander and Rob Mortimer completing the top 15 ahead of Chris Underhill, Alex Fortune, John Hartshorn, Kevin O'Neill and Ron Schoen. And Heat 3, Sylvain Vessier would lead from the front ahead of a massive pack led home by Stuart Gray, followed by Joey Foster, Tom Parker, Mike Bell, Rich Puddle, Ben Joseph, Alex Fortune, Chris Underhill and David Good completing the top 10 ahead of Phil Shears, Ron Schoen, Nigel Vickery, Kevin O'Neill, Chris Lord, John Hartshorn, Alex Kemp, Paul Alexander, Kieran Quirk and Rob Mortimer completing the top 20 in Heat 3. And as number 97 Stuart Gray leads us out onto the formation lap, let's have a look at the grid. It's Gray on pole ahead of number 66 Joey Foster. Row 2 is Rich Puddle and Mike Bell ahead of Tom Parker, with Ben Joseph and Anthony Cleal 6th and 7th ahead of Sylvain Vessier, David Watts and Chris Lord making up the top 10. David Good in behind in 11th ahead of Nigel Vickery, with Paul Alexander 13th ahead of Alex Fortune and Phil Shears. Chris Underhill 16th ahead of Kevin O'Neill and Ron Schoen, with Rob Mortimer and Alex Kemp making up the top 20. John Hartshorn 21st ahead of Kieran Quirk, with Mark Cook and Adrian Help sharing row 12. They have a £5 bet riding on this race to whoever finishes higher. And sadly a non-start for Robin Stones, with a few engine-related dramas throughout the day. So now we look to number 97, Stuart Gray, on the front row. Alongside him is Joey Foster. We're on board with 4th place Mike Bell. We go through the cut-through on the chicane. Keep an eye on Gray, keep an eye on the lights. 13 minutes plus a lap of racing is underway. Now and away goes Gray, and it looks like he's got Bell napping. Good start from everyone up there, and good start for Paul Alexander, nipping through the infield and into turn 1. It's Gray leading from Foster, Puddle, Parker and Bell. And on the way out, Foster challenging Gray, but Rich Puddle's had a problem. He's going slow and everyone is streaming past as they got towards the complex. It's Gray leading from Foster, Bell, Parker, Joseph, Cleal and Watts. And it looked like Paul Alexander looking up the inside of Sylvain Vessier in the back there. Alex Kemp and Mark Cook in battle. Now we're on board with Kevin O'Neill. Ron Schoen ahead of us looking to go around the outside of Phil Shears. David Good looking at Chris Underhill further forward as well. It's all to play for as they exit the loop and up towards Hangar Bend. It's still Gray leading from Foster, then Bell, Parker, Joseph, Cleal and Watts. As one, then is Vickery, Alexander, and the pack streams through down towards chicane. Looks like Chris Lord there going around the outside of Sylvain Vessier on the way up into the chicane. But at the end of lap 1, it's Gray's still leading from Foster. And that's Anthony Cleal looking at the inside of Ben Joseph for 5th and 6th. Tom Parker there in the green helmet is under pressure from number 4 Ben Joseph in the comp cart. As into the complex they go, and there's Ben Joseph going up the inside. That's a change for 5th spot. Cleal and Watts still all over him. Then it's Vickery and Alexander. The next group led by Alex Fortune comes streaming through, but back on board with Parker, and that's Anthony Cleal sliding one up the inside into turn 4. As they go exiting the loop through turn 5 on the run up towards Hangar. Anthony Cleal setting off after Ben Joseph, but still there's nothing separating Gray and Foster at the front. Then there's 2 groups of 2. Then there's Vickery, Alexander, Fortune leading the pack. Then there's Kieran Quirk there with Rob Mortimer and John Hartshorn on his tail. Alex Kemp looking to try and catch up with them, but back on board with Parker ahead of us. That's Anthony Cleal down the inside of Ben Joseph, and Dave Watts down the inside of us, so a move from the O-plate there. That's for 6th, 7th, and Joseph and Cleal for 4th and 5th. Now we're on board with number 5 Paul Alexander, and he's looking down the inside of Nigel Vickery, so it's all action early on here as Alexander takes 8th spot from Vickery. Through streams the pack. Mortimer there having another look at Kieran Quirk. Then there's Alex Kemp. Then Adrian Helps currently holding off Mark Cook in his race for a 5er. as they go down the back straight. But to Hanger once again. It's Gray from Foster. Bell looks like he's trying to close in. Then it's Cleal, Joseph and Watts. And then Parker. And then a gap starting to open up in behind. Looks like Sylvain Vessier now on the tail of Nigel Vickery. Alex Fortune right tucked up tight behind. Then comes Chris Lord and Chris Underhill. Back on board with Kevin O'Neill. Number 16 in front of us. Ron Schoen down the straight. Ahead of him is Phil Shears. Looks like Shears trying to look all over the back of David Good potentially, as Kevin O'Neill trying to catch up and make a move against Ron Schoen. There goes Alexander, Vickery, Vessier, Fortune, Lord, Underhill, Good, Shears, Schoen and O'Neill. Everyone thundering through nose to tail, real bumper to bumper stuff here as they go up towards turn 4. We're on board with Rob Mortimer. Kieran Quirk getting out of shape in front of us, back up to Hanger Bend. Anthony Cleal has caught the back of Mike Bell, set the fastest lap of the race that last time by. As through the chicane, it's Gray from Foster, then it's Bell and Cleal, and Bell strikes the curb. That could give Anthony Cleal a run as they go down across the line and into pit bend, and Anthony Cleal up the inside into third spot, so number 1 up to third. Now can Bell do anything about him? Now we're on board with Rob Mortimer getting run through the chicane against Kieran Quirk, but look at the top end speed from Kieran Quirk in the number 27. Round pit bend they go and up towards the complex. But up into the complex, Vickery and Fortune having a battle. Then it's Chris Lord holding off a train of carts, and Kevin O'Neill's hit Ron Schoen and he's lost it over the curb. He's going to get back up to speed, but Quirk's going to catch him. John Hartshorn there looking to make a move on Rob Mortimer as well at the same time. Through goes Hartshorn, now he's attacking Kevin O'Neill already. All to play for here, back behind Kieran Quirk. Now we're on board with O'Neill looking to try and get the run against Quirk as they go up to Hanger Bend. Gets right up onto the back bumper of the PCR. A little look over the shoulder from Quirk as that's Dave Watts going past Ben Joseph. And Joseph switches back underneath as they're going to run side by side up towards turn 2. Watts pulls ahead though through turns 2 and 3. Dave Watts up to 5th. Parker still going strong. Then it's Alexander and Vessier. Vickery and Fortune. Then Chris Lord with a queue of carts up behind. Then there's Kevin O'Neill going up the inside of Kieran Quirk with a big dive. Can Quirk switch back on exit? Alex Kemp now in that fight as well. But now down back straight. There's Bell, Watts, Joseph, and now we're on board with Rob Mortimer. Oh, and a bit of contact there between O'Neill and Hartshorn. Everyone queuing up behind Kieran Quirk, who's really struggling mid-corner here, but he's got plenty of top end. There's Phil Shears and David Good out of the horseshoe and down towards the bus stop. But for the lead, Stuart Gray still with Joey Foster bumper to bumper with him. Now Anthony Cleal with a new fastest lap has gotten him latched onto that fight. Then it's Bell, Watts, Joseph and Parker, and there's Vessier up the inside of Paul Alexander. That's a battle for 8th. Work with me, says Vessier. Alexander says no and sends a move back straight away into turn 4, and Alexander retakes that 8th place as they exit the loop. Tom Parker ahead, getting smaller and smaller as they go up towards Hanger Bend. But out of Hanger into the dogleg. It's Gray leading from Foster and Cleal. And there's Sylvain Vessier right on the back bumper of Paul Alexander. Once again, it's Cleal down the inside for 2nd against Foster in pit bend. Looks like the move is done. Can Foster launch a counter-attack? As they're coming up onto the back of Adrian Helps and Mark Cook. As through the chicane goes Kieran Quirk with Rob Mortimer and John Hartshorn and Alex Kemp in tow. Now back to the complex. Nigel Vickery starting to put a bit of a gap between himself and Alex Fortune. Then Chris Lord holding off Chris Underhill. David Good tucked up tight behind, as is Phil Shears. As at Hanger, there goes Stuart Gray putting a lap on Adrian Helps. Dave Watts has caught Mike Bell as Bell's trying to get past Mark Cook, but he's going to have to slot in on the way into the chicane. Bell gets the run. And he's picked the wrong side against Mark Cook. Through goes Dave Watts, the O-plate up to 4th, Bell down to 5th. And there's Ron Schoen chasing the group. Kieran Quirk with John Hartshorn now on his tail, so Hartshorn has repassed Mortimer. Battles all up and down the order, as through goes Watts and Bell against Adrian Helps. Sylvain Vessier has found his way back ahead of Paul Alexander and is starting to break away. Then it's Vickery and Fortune. Then in behind, Chris Lord against Chris Underhill. Ron Schoen looking at the inside of Phil Shears. Then it's Kevin O'Neill breaking away from the Quirk group. Alex Kemp still tucked up tight behind there as well. As through the chicane go the leaders. So Anvesia now going past Mark Cook. And now back on board with Mortimer. John Hartshorn ahead of us looking for a way past the number 27 of Kieran Quirk. As just ahead of them at the Hanger Bend. And now the leaders through the complex. 1, 2, 3. Alexander now making a move against Cook. Through Pit Bend they go. And up towards the complex. And that's Chris Underhill looking to the inside of Chris Lord. Looks like the move may have been made. And Underhill ahead of Lord. Now David Good looking to try and follow him through. Phil Shears in there behind. Oh, and contact between Shears and Ron Schoen. Kevin O'Neill goes out and around the outside. Schoen and Shears get untangled and away they go. Through goes Quirk. And Ron Schoen's going to drop all the way down to 21st spot. Bit of a mistime move there from Schoen. And now here's Sylvain Vessier. All over the back of Tom Parker. They're bumper to bumper through the chicane. Have to see what happens in that battle. But there's David Good now on the back of Chris Underhill. Through the complex they go. Top three still as close as ever. 6/10 separating them. Then comes Watts and Bell trying to collect back into the race. There's Ben Joseph. And then it's Parker and Vessier. And Vessier down the inside through turn 3. So the number 14 moves ahead of the number 15. Here's Shears, Quirk, Hartshorn and Mortimer. There's Alex Kemp running very rich there. Got a lot of smoke coming out. Ron Schoen chasing him down. They go up into the complex. It's a battle for 16th down to 21st, all in a line. Now on board with Mortimer. John Hartshorn ahead of us looking to the inside of Kieran Quirk. And he's going to make the move. The number 90 up ahead of Quirk. Now Hartshorn's going to set off after Phil Shears, you would imagine. Quirk looks to be really struggling mid-corner. Now Mortimer's got Alex Kemp right behind him. Nigel Vickery and Alex Fortune battling over 10th spot as down the inside goes David Good on Mark Cook, it looks like. Good has passed Chris Lord over the last lap as well, as now Lord going by Mark Cook. And Kevin O'Neill going to follow through, and now they're going to close right up. Good in the number 7, Chris Lord in the number 69 now looking to the inside as they go up past Adrian Helps. Kevin O'Neill we're on board with right up, tucked up tight behind. As for the lead, Anthony Cleal now a 10th behind Stuart Gray, but it's not a 10th anymore. Cleal looking left, looking right, looking into the complex. He's going to set up for a better exit against Stuart Gray, but up at Hanger Bend, Kevin O'Neill still piling on the pressure against Chris Lord. Down to the chicane they go, through the right, through the left, and opening up onto the straight. David Good starting to try and break away from this battle now as O'Neill closes on Lord. Down the inside into Pit Bend. Good move from Kevin O'Neill. And in behind there, it's Phil Shears making a move on someone. Now we're on board with Paul Alexander. He's caught Tom Parker as they go up towards Hanger themselves. Rob Mortimer now, and someone up the inside, that's Alex Kemp. And Kemp and Mortimer are going to run side by side through turn 3. And on the way out of turn 3, they're going to run 3 wide. Mortimer on the left, Kemp in the middle, and Ron Schoen going up the inside of the pair of them. As ahead of us, Mark Cook has passed Adrian Helps. Kieran Quirk now trying to get through as well. Ron Schoen has moved ahead of Mortimer, and there's Alex Kemp holding on around the outside as they all go up towards Hanger. There's Hartshorn, Cook, and that's Alex Kemp getting sideways on the way into Hanger. Now we're back on board with Paul Alexander. This battle for 8th spot, Alexander versus Parker. Parker's going to get sideways on the way into turn 4. Alexander's going to be presented with an opportunity as they're going to run up through the kinks now. Parker looking very sideways and Alexander sniffing around for any opportunity he can to get by. There's Quirk and Schoen battling away. And there come the leaders. They're coming up towards the back of the pack now as Grace still ahead of Anthony Cleal. Back on board with Alexander, down to Pit Bend, Parker with a rear wheel off the ground. And that's up now into the complex. That's Vessier on the tail of Ben Joseph just in front. Then it's the bright green helmet of Tom Parker against the bright orange suit of Paul Alexander. They're going to run up the back straight. Again, Parker with a rear wheel off the ground. He's going to leave the inside open, and Alexander's going to think about it. He's going to go up on the curb. They're going to go side by side. Parker's going to hang on though. Only 30 seconds left on the clock now, so 2 laps to go for Stuart Gray. Anthony Cleal right on his bumper as Gray getting through past Mark Cook. But up the road, Quirk and Schoen still battling away. Then it's Kemp chasing them down. And then Gray, Cleal and Joey Foster is brought back into this as well. Now back to Parker versus Alexander as they're going to go round pit bend. Alexander trying to close in, knows he doesn't have that long left to go. Likewise in front, Sylvain Vessier making the move against Ben Joseph, and Alexander down the inside through turn 3. That's Chris Lord on the left hand side, stopped on the side of the circuit, but Parker's going to hang on against Alexander for the time being. Now we're on board with Kevin O'Neill, side by side with David Good, Chris Underhill in front of us, and O'Neill going around the outside of David Good, and then up the inside for the next bend. That's Rob Mortimer moving out of the way as Stuart Gray and Anthony Cleal take the last lap board. They're coming up onto the battle between Schoen, Quirk and Kemp. And Joey Foster's closing back in again, so it could be 3 for the lead. Now we're on board with Kevin O'Neill. Chris Underhill ahead of us as we go up to Hanger Bend. They're going to come down to take the last lap board, and Phil Shears has now joined this fight in the comp cart. Up the road there, that's Vickery and Alexander heading down into turn 1. Sorry, Vickery and Alex Fortune, as that's Kieran Quirk running wide, getting out of the way of the leaders, and there's bumper-to-bumper stuff between Gray, Cleal and Foster. Gray's going to defend down towards the chicane, and through the chicane they go. Who's going to get the run out on exit to take the win? And across the line they go 3 abreast. Gray wins it from Cleal by 0.07 of a second, with Joey Foster within 0.3 as well. Very close stuff even until the end. Watts is going to be fourth ahead of Bell, Vessier and Joseph. Parker's going to hold off Paul Alexander, it looks like, as now back up to Hanger. That's Vickery and Fortune nose to tail. Vickery going to defend down on the way into the chicane. Looks like Vickery's going to be able to hold on against Alex Fortune as they're going to run to the line. Sharon all in together, and they've had a great battle this race. Then the next train going in behind into the chicane. And now Ron Schoen and Alex Kemp round Hanger Bend. They're going to be the last couple of finishers. Can Kemp get the run out of the chicane on Schoen? He's going to close right up onto the back bumper. Who's going to get it? It's going to be Schoen, but not by much. 0.1 of a second in it for 17th spot. Shows you how tight it is all up and down the grid here at Formula Blue. And the results after scrutineering: Stuart Gray declared the winner ahead of Anthony Cleal and Joey Foster making up the top 3. Dave Watts 5 seconds back in 4th ahead of Mike Bell and Sylvain Vessier, with Ben Joseph, Tom Parker, Paul Alexander and Nigel Vickery running at the top 10. They're going to be ahead of Alex Fortune with Chris Underhill, Phil Shears, David Good and Kevin O'Neill in behind. O'Neill actually on the receiving end of a 5-second time penalty for front fairing infringement, dropping him down a few spots. Likewise John Hartshorn in 16th, Ron Schoen in 17th ahead of Alex Kemp, who would also be given a 5-second penalty for front fairing infringement. Kieran Quirk 19th ahead of Rob Mortimer, with Mark Cook winning himself a 5er off of Adrian Helps. They're both going to get to the finish ahead of Chris Lord and Rich Puddle pulling off early. What that'll do to the championship standings: Stuart Gray with a perfect score is going to lead the way ahead of Joey Foster. Anthony Cleal and Mike Bell tied on 3rd ahead of Dave Watts, Ben Joseph and Tom Parker, all even on points. Sylvain Vessier only a point behind, and then Paul Alexander and Nigel Vickery tied, making up the top 10. Alex Fortune behind in 11th ahead of David Good, Rich Puddle, Chris Underhill and Phil Shears making up the top 15. Ahead of Kevin O'Neill, Chris Lord, Ron Schoen, John Hartshorn and Alex Kemp, the novice, up into 20th in the championship. Obviously that is after round 1, drop scores are in place, so we won't know where everyone truly sits until the finish of the next round at Clay Pigeon. So we will have to wait and see, but for now that's the point scores. Stuart Gray likewise is leading the Blue Masters over Joey Foster, with Anthony Cleal a further point behind. Ben Joseph in 4th, Paul Alexander and Nigel Vickery even on 5th ahead of Alex Fortune, David Good, Chris Underhill and Phil Shears making up the top 10. Kevin O'Neill tied with Chris Lord for 11th ahead of Ron Schoen, with John Hartshorn in 14th ahead of Alex Kemp and Rob Mortimer even on points for 15th and 16th. And in the Blue Veterans standings, once again Stuart Gray sweeps the day. He's going to be leading the way ahead of Anthony Cleal. with Paul Alexander and Nigel Vickery tied once again ahead of David Good, with Chris Underhill and Phil Shears even on points ahead of Kevin O'Neill and Chris Lord, and Ron Schoen making up the top 20, making up the top 10 with 20 points, ahead of John Hartshorn, Rob Mortimer, Mark Cook, Adrian Helps and Robin Stovak-Stones. In the Blue Legends class, it's Stuart Gray again leading the way thanks to his pole and victory. Chris Underhill and David Good are going to be tied for second ahead of Kevin O'Neill, Chris Lord in fifth ahead of John Hartshorn and Ron Schoen, with Mark Cook, Adrian Helps and Robin Stovak-Stones making up the top 10. And in the blue top weights, it's Ben Joseph and Tom Parker sharing the lead ahead of Phil Shears, with John Hartshorn fourth ahead of Ron Schoen, Rob Mortimer, Mark Cook and Adrian Helps. That's going to be all for today for round 1 of the Blue Challenge. Join us in a couple of weeks as the Formula Blue classes head to Clay Pigeon Kart Club for round 2 of the Blue Challenge and for both the Junior and Senior Blue O plates. So we shall see you then. Goodbye.
Senior Blues. Woo! Yay! Here comes Kenneth. Woo! Stay there. Stay there. And in fifth place was Michael Bell. Woo! There's only one Jodie Foster. Just a second. Oh, Anne, you poor soul. How do you feel? Loser. Loser. Yay! Woo! He just stands on the table. Yay! Well done, lads. Oh, bless you. Absolutely brilliant.